Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Fix Your BS, where BS stands for belief systems. We also talk about business in the Fix Your BS world, and we talk about balance sheets, and we also talk about business systems. Three of my favorite things: belief systems, balance sheets, and business systems. What we really hone in on in this podcast, in case you're new, is we talk about five major pillars and how they relate to those first three things. Those things are relationships, their health, they are money or finances, their business or career, and they are beliefs. And we really find the most amazing people on the internet that share their stories and their tricks and tips and strategies in order to improve your life. In every episode, we find nuggets of information that people have implemented in their lives, and they've told us how it has improved their life. Our goal is to help you build your dream life on your terms in the Fix Your BS world. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Persley, and we have done it again. We have found another amazing guest. His name is Claudio Sorrentino, and he is a renowned entrepreneur, innovator, and a debut author. He stands as a paragon of entrepreneurial success and innovative thinking. This guy has got all sorts of accolades, and I'm so excited to introduce you guys to him, and so he can tell you his stories and his path to success, and also some of the challenges he's dealing with. That way you guys can
Absolutely.
understand you're not alone. So thanks, Claudio, for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
So, man, let's get started. I like to give a little bit of a background. There's so
Sure.
many people that listen to this podcast, whether they are new in the entrepreneurial or business space, or they're have been in it a long time. But
Right.
what I found is everybody can relate to your background, your story.
Sure. Yeah. So I've always been entrepreneurial. I, like many other entrepreneurs, sold candy as a kid and, junior high and high school to make money. I grew up, being raised by my mom on the income of a secretary, when my parents divorced at an early age. So I had always needed to find my own path to making money. When I went to college, just serendipitously, I had taken all of my fraternity brothers. I was in a fraternity to a nightclub. And, out of that sprung an idea to have a nightclub promotions business. So I did that in college, and it was a very successful business called Dragon Entertainment that I had started with my same business partner who I have today in my most recent venture. But then after we graduated college, nightclubs got a little tiring. The hours were not, the most convenient for us. And so we were looking for our next thing. I'm Italian and Brazilian. I needed laser hair removal, just to have the blessing and curse of body hair. And so I said, how can I get this for free? I was about to get my master's, start my master's education, and have to self-fund it. So I decided to look for a job at a place that was offering laser services. Got a job, realized it was a great business model. Spoke to my same prior business partner. He was looking at what his next venture would be at the time, and we both decided that this would be a great field. 9 months later, we're opening our doors to the very first center in Coral Gables, and back in March of 2006.
That's awesome. Yeah, aesthetic medicine is what you're talking about, and that has
Mhm.
been a very booming market. It's kind of turned into a bit of a red ocean at this point, where there's
Mm.
so many of them that are opening. So we
Right.
talked a little bit about that and business. You know how it goes. You did get on the front end of the trend of that in '06. That's
Right.
fantastic. But
Mhm.
as businesses grow, and I've done this, I've opened up businesses or bought businesses, and as they expand and improve, then all of a sudden other people start jumping on that ship.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that, because people are going to deal with that in their, entrepreneurial and business journeys for sure.
Yeah, so we went through sort of everything running the business. We went through the recession, which was a very challenging time. We had to, we were basically doubling in size every year. Then we had to close a bunch of locations at that time. Then, we started expanding again. We had raised some capital. The business was doing very well. Then we got hit with COVID. Fortunately, we were in Florida, so COVID lasted a much shorter period of time than the majority of places in the country. So, businesses got back up and running here rather quickly. And our business performed pretty well coming out of COVID. And then it was really a land grab. We had other places that were being shut down and being really impacted by COVID regulations. Those companies and people were coming to Florida. So we had this huge influx of competition in the subsequent years thereafter. And major, consolidation in the market, where just private equity money that had sat stagnant through all of COVID was now being flooded into businesses like ours, because high margins, good cash flow, and economies of scale. If you're large, you win. And that made it really challenging for the business. And if you didn't have an equally powerful capital partner, you ran into, rising costs without rising revenues. And sort of that's the challenging period we're in right now. So we've had to go back again to closing locations, reducing footprint, and really hunkering down with the four-wall economics of the locations that we have, making them as strong as humanly possible to then go back into the growth curve again. But it's been a very challenging time. Inflation's impacting people, so it hasn't been the best and most opportune time for that business. But there's winners and losers in every economy, so you just have to be persistent enough to ride through those downturns and believe that you can make it to the other side and commit to never give up.
And that's, I think, the entrepreneurial statement right there that you just said. Never give up. In fact,
Mm,
if you look at all the, or at least most of the major entrepreneurial or business owners that you would know, the richest, the wealthiest, they just say, look, if you never give up, if you keep going, you really can't lose, you can't fail. What
right.
entrepreneurial on that spirit really is the ability to figure out. It's like a puzzle, and it's
Mm.
almost like a game. Do you view it kind of as a game, the game of business, or
I think you kind of have to, or you'll lose your sanity. I think when Elon Musk says entrepreneurship is like staring to the abyss, eating glass. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Most people are so used to leaving. If they're coming from the normal work environment, they leave their job, they leave it at the door. You never think about work really. You're never worried about whether a delivery is going to arrive. That's going to make sure you can, make your coffees next week if you're running, working at a Starbucks. But when you're the entrepreneur who owns it's a 24-hour cycle of a job because it just never leaves your mind. I go to sleep, I have dreams about this business, I wake up thinking about this business. And if you're not eternally distracted, every thought goes back to some concern or future aspect of your business. And I think that's where it takes a tremendous amount of resiliency, and you can't take it so seriously because the stress would be so overwhelming you'd collapse under the weight. So I think at some point you have to just say, oh, this is fun, or let's see if this works, and be confident enough to say that, you'll figure it out if it doesn't. I think entrepreneurs are the number one figure it out people on the planet, that they just believe no matter what they face, they'll figure it out. I think that's one of the probably most shining and resolute characteristics of entrepreneurs. That spans the test of every entrepreneur I've ever met. As a mentor to entrepreneurs, as someone who's worked with entrepreneurs in the past, they all share that same "I'll just figure it out." And I think having that mentality and adopting that mentality is one of the first things you can do if you're an aspiring entrepreneur to get yourself ready for what that experience will be like, because you're not going to have all the answers, and things that you never expect are going to be thrown at you, and you have to have the ability to just pivot, because you can plan all day and assume every scenario you can imagine, and something is going to happen that just came out of left field that you never would have expected. And that's what it takes to run a successful business.
I do a lot of mentorship, consulting, coaching in the business world as well, and that's one of the things that when I'm invited to speak at colleges and universities and things that I have to bring up because a lot of the entrepreneurial spirit, the business spirit, the people that are going to start a business because they think that it's going to be something that they can control and be successful in.
Right.
I'm like, you realize you're gonna get slapped in the face. Like it's not an if, it is going to happen probably
Mhm.
sooner than you think.
Right.
And what you're saying is that ability to withstand the storm and figure it out no matter what is like the key. And I totally agree with that. I think you're so right on with that.
I love that analogy because I actually literally quote that in my book. I say that in entrepreneurship, you're going to get punched in the face, metaphorically. And the example I use is that if every day you leave your house, you get punched in the face. First thing, you open the door, you get punched in the face. The first day, it's terrifying. It's shocking. It hurts. You're scared. You're what's going on. You panic. But by the fifth day, you're like, I know I'm going to walk out and get punched in the face. I'm used to it. It hurts less. You're not as concerned. There's no panic anymore. There's almost an expectation of what you're going to face, even though it sucks. And then by the 30th day, like maybe that point, you're laughing about it. You're because you're so used to
Mhm.
this negative experience. And I tell people that even though your environment may not change when you're dealing with hell on earth as an entrepreneur, you are changing internally. And there's a benefit to that because that resiliency that you're building, that strength that you're building by facing a problem over and over and over again, even if every one of your solutions fails, today's solutions failed, tomorrow's solutions fail, the third day solutions failed, eventually you're more capable of dealing with stress and challenges that you just become a better entrepreneur and are better able to more rapidly solve future problems. So you can't look at it as defeat. You have to look at it as growth.
Mm.
And it's a really a shift in mindset, which is the greatest thing you talk about. Is it is purely a mindset play that's going to be the difference maker between whether or not you're successful in your venture or not. Because you have to have the resiliency and the mindset to overcome. And it's only when you accept defeat you're gone. That's when it's over.
Yeah. You're exactly right, man. And I love that too. Like, you've heard that Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. It is so
Absolutely.
true. You got a
Hmm.
plan and you walk out that door and you're like, this is how it's going to go. And then the market changes or the
Yeah.
customer base doesn't react like you expected, or,
Right.
somebody comes and complains about something, blah, 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 blah. There's always something, but
Right.
that resiliency is so, so true. And the perception and mindset, man, like that's the one thing you can control. I do
Right.
love the analogy of opening your door and getting slapped in the face, because that's the reason why so many people are afraid of what that will feel like. That's why they
Right.
never even open the door in the first place.
Exactly. And so look, I think, for me, one of the things that we did is, I find a way to exercise your brain the same way people, want to exercise a muscle in the body. And I tell everyone, your brain's a muscle just like anything else, and you need to train resiliency. Phenomenal book called The Talent Code talks about this, about how you create neural connections with your brain and you can voluntarily make it easier or harder on yourself to think positive thoughts, to think solution focused, because what another famous author says, whatever we fire we wire. So the more thoughts you think positively, the easier and more reinforced your brain is at thinking positive thoughts in the future, the faster that neural signal sends. And the more negative thoughts you think, the faster that neural signal sends. So you're basically making it easier to think negatively the more you think negatively. And so it's so important that you just dismiss those thoughts immediately, that you watch motivational YouTube videos, that you learn to meditate, that you physically exercise or do things that continue to give your brain positive reinforcement so that you make it easier for future circumstances to be viewed positively and optimistically. And it's one of the quotes I love even about entrepreneurship, where everybody's like, oh, 95% of businesses fail within 5 years, and the other remaining 5%, it's only like 3% make it beyond that. And as someone who's been operating this business for 18 plus years now, um, through hell and high water, I think what's more important than that quote is entrepreneurs' second businesses, even the ones who fail, the success rate is over 80%. So it's because of what they learned through that major failure that makes them so strong in venture number two and three and four. And so if you know that this guaranteed to fail thing is going to make you a guaranteed success at the second thing, then I would rush out to that failure as quickly as possible. And so it takes all the fear away because you're going to learn so much in that experience that even if it doesn't go, if you're lucky and you're one of the 1% that makes it, great. But if you're not, just know that your next business is so highly likely to succeed that it'll have been worth every penny you invested in the first one.
It's like that old statement, the first million is hard,
Hmm.
but the second million is guaranteed.
Absolutely.
And people are like, well, it's not guaranteed. Yes, it's who you became in getting the first million that makes
100%.
you aware of how to do the second million. If
100%.
somebody led you down a trail to find something, you found it and you go back, you're like, well, it's easier to get there the
Right.
second time because I know the trail. Um,
Exactly.
so I love that. I love that. I want to talk for a second, and I want to make sure we have links to your books as
Hmm.
well as the one you just mentioned, the Talent Code. That's a really good one as well. And
Hmm.
also your social media will have links to everybody listening.
Sure.
We'll have Claudio's links to all of his information down below. You can click on those. But
Awesome.
I want to talk to you about some of the hardest things that you had gone through, because that's typically, when we talk about success and we talk about people when they are successful, they might be on level 10, and people who typically are listening, they're like level 1, 2, 3, and they want to be at that level 10, but they have to go through those hard times. And maybe there's some
Sure.
value in you telling some of the hard times and what you learned and the experiences you received from that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, we had, even from our very first moments, we had opened our first location and we were shut down by the fire marshal within 2 weeks because we didn't have a fire rated door in the center. So we spent $70,000 on a marketing budget, blitz. Hey, everyone, grand opening. We're open, we're operating for business. Fire marshal comes in 2 weeks later, shuts us down. We're shut down for 4 weeks. All those customers couldn't come. We had to pay staff to stay at home, and that was a complete kick in the teeth that we had no idea was going to happen, and was unplanned and unbudgeted for.
And let's talk about that for just a second. I want to stop there for a second because I've lost money in investments. I've lost money in business ventures. Given a roundabout, how much money do you think that cost you or that you lost in quotations
that
at that
one
moment?
event, yeah, that one event probably cost us over 50,000 easily. Hmm.
And it's funny because everybody listening and watching this, Claudio had zero emotion when he said that. Like,
Hmm.
I had a business venture one time. We ended up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And most people will freak out. But because I had that experience, I now know things that I wouldn't have known. Somebody will spend 200 grand on a degree through
Right.
college and no one will think twice. But because I lost couple $100,000 in a business venture, people go, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Why? I learned more doing
Right.
that business venture and messing it up than I would have learned going to college. I'm not saying go out and spend and throw money away. Just saying those type of people are typically thinking in terms of hourly wage. We're thinking in
Sure.
terms of value.
Right. And I think, look, I think that's a very good point. I think generally speaking, you have to look at things as either you win or you learn. And that the lesson will be more valuable than its cost typically. And I think also there's a very important thing that if you're not dead, you still have a chance at making it, and there's always some way to survive there. There's always things that you can pull off and do that you may not have previously thought possible if you focus on the solution rather than the obstacle. So in that moment, it would not have served us to just wallow about the money we were losing. What made more sense is to focus on resolving the issue as quickly as possible so 50,000 didn't become 70,000. And so in one way of looking at it, we could say we saved 20,000 by solving the problem as fast as humanly possible because we were focused on the solution. Because problems are inevitable, and that is going to happen. We had a pipe burst in a wall and it flooded the entire first floor, and we had to have mitigation services and move lasers manually, between locations. I mean, things that you wouldn't believe that no one would ever talk about. We have experienced operating this business, even managing through the recession, finding ways to survive on 50% less sales overnight. I mean, there are just things that occur. And that was, I had no hand in the economic crisis of 2008. In 2009, I didn't do anything to cause that. So you just have to have an expectation that the world is going to throw things at you, but life is happening for you. It's making you stronger. It's making you better. It's not happening to you, but for you. And if you view things that way, then every obstacle and circumstance that hits you, you say, what is this teaching me? What is the growth point from this? And how am I going to use this to my betterment in the future? And even if it cripples you all the way to, losing the business, it still allows you to now have a lesson to share with others who are going through similar circumstances and may be in a challenge that you can now prevent them from losing from, or just making you a stronger operator in your risk aversion and things that you can, prevent in future ventures. And so that's just the way I've always seen it. You have to accept the fact that it's outside of your control. I think, it's hard as entrepreneurs because we so often think, we have, if you ask most entrepreneurs, like, what's the odds you're going to be successful? They're like, oh, I mean, I control 90%, 100, the environment's this minuscule percentage. But if you do the math, the reality of it is you control this minuscule percentage, and the economic environment, the military wars, they control so much of that. So once you stop being outcome focused and you just start focusing on process, then you have a much higher likelihood of succeeding because you cannot always control the outcome. But I can control the experience my customers have. I can control the experience my employees have with me. I can control the decisions I make on a daily basis and whether I show up to work with a positive mentality. So, those things I have a direct hand in. I don't have a hand in if the government creates another new economic crisis or if there's some other new pandemic that impacts businesses. I can't worry or do anything about those things. All I can do is the best I can with the actions I can physically take today. And this applies to fitness and health. I mean, I can't control how many McDonald's opens up in my backyard. I just have to choose to not eat McDonald's if I want to not have that problem. And it's the same in entrepreneurship.
I love what you just said, though. It's just, focusing on the controllables, the things you can control. Something I wanted to bring up, I did look this up while you were talking, and I wanted to bring this up to the listeners because a lot of people, especially in today's society, like to compare. Social media is easy to compare, and you see these people that are putting on these really fake lives up on social media that's not real. I know a guy
Mm-hmm.
that's more in debt than you could ever imagine, but he's posting things about is driving on flying on private jets and driving
Right.
nice expensive cars or whatever, but people don't realize he's barely making it. Like, he
Mm-hmm.
looks good, but he's not going anywhere. But
Mm-hmm.
also comparing ages, because I know for a long time when I was in my mid to late 20s and early 30s, I thought I was behind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you just pull up a list of the amount of people that started after 40 years old, and you will be absolutely astounded at people that started businesses after 40. A
Mm-hmm.
designer named Vera Wang, a lot of people will know that she started her or
Absolutely.
did her first dress at 40. Then you have Martha Stewart after 41. We have Bill Porter, who founded E-Trade. He was 54. Home
Mm-hmm.
Depot founder Bernie Marcus, 50 years old. So, so and so forth. You get the point. But Google that and just look at some of the names on that list, um, and you'll be surprised, and you'll realize you're not behind. It doesn't
Right.
matter what age you are. You're where you're at, and focusing
Right.
on what Claudio said: solution oriented, controlling your attitude, your decisions, your customers' experience, your employees' experience. So huge, so huge.
Right. No, absolutely. I agree with that completely. I think, as someone who's always sort of been an entrepreneur, I guess you could say I started early, um, compared to the average person. But I don't think necessarily that is a particular advantage per se. I think, sometimes starting later is an advantage, more life experience, more financial security. If you did other things right, more knowledge of your own industry, of things you're trying to jump into. Sometimes it can be highly beneficial to start later because just your world of experience and maturity is greater. And so and what I've also seen is the speed with which success can occur can be a rocket ship or a turtle. And so I think it just depends on a little bit of luck and a little bit of industry, specific relative elements. But I don't think that aspect of it matters. I think, again, going back to the solution, focusing on the process, not the end result outcome. If you focus on doing what you love, you'll work for it aggressively, you'll pursue it with all your might and desire, and it will change your future inevitably because people don't quit the things they love. And that's the hard part. I think too often people are chasing what they think is going to make them money. And then when it becomes really hard, it's hard to work for something you hate. It's easy when it's easy and it's making you money and it's paying the bills. But when things get really tough, as it inevitably will be in some way as an entrepreneur, if you don't love it, you'll quit and you will inevitably fail.
What is your advice to someone? Because you're exactly right. A lot of people do chase the money. They try to do something because they believe it's going to make them a lot of money. Number one, I think that's generally false. They think it's going to, oh, this will be the easy way to make money. But
Mhm.
I totally believe what you're talking about, or agree with. It's got to be in something you love to do. Now, Warren Buffett talks a lot about choosing the right ship or the right, vehicle.
Right,
Um, and so where do those things collide? Hey, I'm doing
right,
what I love and it's something that's exciting that will make me money, but it's also the right ship in the fact that, or the right vehicle in the fact that it's scalable and it's able to grow and expand.
right.
Um, so
Yeah,
talk
I
a little
think,
bit
look,
about
I
your.
think the hard part there is, I think first you have to really hone in on what you want. And what you want is, it may not have anything to do with money. And Gary Vee references this a lot in his conversations. Like, happiness to you may not be $100 million. It may be I make money passively when I sleep and it's 50 grand a year and I travel, and I'm happy, and so first honing in on what it is you want, then saying, okay, this is the what I want from a lifestyle perspective, from because oftentimes even people who think like, oh, I want to fly in private jets, you don't need to own a private jet. And the average person to be able to take a few private jet flights a year is not billionaire status. It's not even necessarily millionaire status a year in income. I mean, someone who makes 500 to $750,000 a year could probably take most of their vacations on a private jet, no problem, and pay the $20,000 to fly somewhere. And if they just love that aspect of the luxury, it's affordable at that income level, and that's not billionaire status. And so I think one, it's learning what you want and getting really, really. Tony Robbins talks about this in his book Money Master the Game. What does your lifestyle actually cost if you really got into the detail? And then you can set a goal around that, and then saying, okay, now what is my actual passion? And now I think the bridge that most people miss, which is where reading is so beneficial, is read books about wealth. And you have, no matter what, because we live in an economy that transacts via money, you need to understand money no matter what you do. Period. It's just a fact. No one just throws money at your doorstep every day. So then you have to decide, okay, this is what I want. This is what I love. Now, how do I make the connection of money between those? And that's the only unique thinking that's really required. So if I love playing video games all day, how does someone make money playing video games? And now you got to say, okay, I need a channel. I need advertisers. I need sponsors. I need this, or I can win tournaments. There's multiple ways to make money playing video games. And how much are you willing to commit to do that? And do you have a channel that literally every time you're playing a video game, you're on with a headset broadcasting to the world, DMing people randomly, commenting on other people who follow other people who are video gaming? So there are ways to make money in almost every field, because there are people who are passionate. I follow someone now who makes $150,000 a month, and she does crafts, like literal crafts in her house, and it's just an astronomical sum of money, and that's her passion. But what she does very well is monetize her passion. And so I think that's one of the biggest keys, is that there are vehicles that make money in the traditional sense, but the traditional sense is just because we haven't been taught everything there is to know about money, about how to make money compound, about all the different ways money can be made. And once we understand that, and we say, okay, I can make $50,000 a year, save 10, put it away, invest it, and in 10 years, I'll have this based on compound interest. I can start my own business self-funded. I can do all these things. And then you can leverage all the different ways to make money, even just showing that journey online over time. So I think that's the biggest key, is you have to start thinking about money. And I learned this lesson, albeit too late myself. I had a good salary for a decent amount. I reference it in the book. And I wasn't investing as aggressively. I grew up without any education around money. I put money in a savings account that was losing money to inflation every year. And I made good money for 10 years before I started actually feeling like I was getting wealthier. Because it was only after 10 years that I started aggressively investing, buying assets, doing things that I should be doing with my money. Before, I drove a Porsche. I had a lot of money in the bank. I spent a lot of money on dinners, but it wasn't the best. I wasn't getting rich. I just had a nice income. And I think once you start to understand money, you realize that, like a language or like learning to cook, it's not this sort of cosmic, incomprehensible thing that no one. There's a very systematic way that you can make money, and all you have to do is find any source of income, no matter how small or big, and use it wisely, and you will eventually be rich. And so once you take out that fear, everybody who does anything can have sort of the lifestyle they want. It's just a function of time. Like Warren Buffett says, why doesn't everybody follow what Warren Buffett says? He says, because people don't want to get rich slow. So like he knows that his process of the Fortune 500 companies and invest over time, you're guaranteed you're going to be rich. 30, 40 years from now, you're going to be rich. But people don't like getting rich slow. So if you want to get rich faster, learn what you can so you can leverage multiple ways to make money doing what you love.
The one thing that you said in there really brings this quote to mind, and I really love it. It's rich is loud, wealthy is silent. And
Absolutely.
so when people think of rich, they think of Lamborghinis, they think of
Hmm.
Porsches. they think of big houses, they think of these massive things, but really wealth is accumulated quietly over
Hmm.
time. The more you
Absolutely.
invest, the more you take it slow. But I think we live in this get rich quick society where people look online. Like you can look at my Instagram. I get 65,000
Yeah.
followers. We're monetizing it. We're bringing in some revenue from it. But it's not like we're not bringing in a couple hundred grand a month from that.
Right.
It's
Right.
little trickles, little trickles.
Hmm.
Grant Cardone talks about in his book 10x, the 10x rule. He talks
Right.
about how many little trickles of money can I get coming toward me to where I can accumulate enough to make a big move, a big impact.
100%.
But I think most people try to do more with less. And that's the opposite. And I did that. I put myself in a really hard financial situation because I was trying to do more with less. And I didn't have
Right.
the backing in case it went bad. And
Right.
if it did go bad, I would have been really in trouble. And it partly did. So like wealthy, it's accumulation over time. And I love what you're talking about with financial literacy. So what
Right.
were the books that you mentioned? Money Master the Game. I actually have that book right here.
Yeah, it's a great
Um,
one. Yeah, you have some good ones back there. I was checking them out when I was looking at it. So Money Master the Game is a great one. Rich Dad Poor Dad is a fundamental, the most basic book on earth. Everybody should give it to. If you have teenage kids, like hand it to them immediately, just to get them to understand finance in a different way. There's a book called How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis, who started Maxim magazine. It's a great book. And then there's obviously The Intelligent Investor, which is Warren Buffett's, Benjamin Graham's famous book about investing and investment analysis. And there's a multitude, but I think even with basically Money Master the Game, Rich Dad Poor Dad, you'll have enough of an understanding of life and assets and what to purchase to be able to start making money and feel like you're making good decisions. I think the it doesn't need to be a book, but the number one lesson there is, spend less than you make so you have something worth doing something with. And that's the thing. And if you get to a point like you, I don't vilify anyone who wants to drive a Ferrari or live in a mansion. Like by all means, we all should, but you shouldn't do it when you don't have your assets paying for your whole life. Now, when your assets are paying for your whole lifestyle, buy whatever you want. When I have money that's making me money in my sleep, and then I'm driving a Lamborghini, and it's not, I don't have to work for it, and it's not, I'm going to work every day stressing over that payment. By all means, get it. But until your assets are paying for your lifestyle, live a moderate lifestyle and put more money away. And so that's the key.
So basically, the lesson there is be money mindful or be mindful of your money.
Right.
Like in the rap songs, like I got my mind on my money on my mind. Um,
100%. Absolutely.
yeah, you got to pay attention to it. My mentors really talk about, if you don't pay attention to it, it will fly away from you. It will leave you. You have to pay
Absolutely.
attention to what it's doing. You have to have a purpose for it. I'm
Right.
accumulating this money to do this thing so I can invest into these things in order to have this lifestyle. And I love the reverse engineering thing you said earlier, which is basically write down the lifestyle you want, figure out how much it costs, and then put it down on paper. My wife and I
Right.
did just that. And we have our dream life will cost
Hmm.
less than $20,000 a month. And
That's
that's with,
amazing.
yeah, that's with flying private. It's with having a
Right.
butler. It's having, I mean,
Right.
like our dream life, less than 20
Yeah.
grand. And I thought it was going to be way more than that. So
Right.
our goal is to create 20,000 per month in passive income. We can have our
Hmm.
dream life without having to work at all.
Absolutely. And then you have the freedom. At that point, that's when you really have the freedom to pursue. And this is what I tell people. Let's say you do have a love for something and you don't find a way to monetize it, but you have something else that you can monetize. Then you have to work as aggressively as possible investing to get your income to a place where you don't have to work, but you can still pay your bills. Because once you do that, now you can pursue that passion. And whether it makes money or doesn't, you're still okay. And so money is still just the tool to a life of freedom. And people fail to realize that. And they always say, like, well, I can't, or it's too hard, or my rent's expensive. And one of the greatest things that Tony Robbins talks about in his book, that you have sitting behind you that a lot of people don't like, is, well, move.
Yeah.
No one's forcing you to live in an expensive place, especially in an economy that can be driven by the internet. Most things can be done remotely. Like, move to a cheaper place
Yeah.
and save money. And now, your same money that you're making, and especially if you get a remote job, goes 20, 30% farther. That's 20 to 30% in your investments or your assets that gets you to your goal that much faster. So, I feel like we tend to make excuses very easily and, commit to actual problem solving very rarely. And I think that's part of the problem is you have to take an honest acceptance of the fact that you are your own problem and you're your own worst enemy and the goal of your future. And so stop telling yourself the excuses that prevent you from having what you want.
It's so funny that because that brings it back around to focus on the solution. And what you just
Mhm.
said is a very problem oriented thought process. Well,
Mhm.
the rent's expensive here and it's a complaining, it's a victim type mentality.
Right.
And that runs rampant in our
Mhm.
society. So get yourself around other people. I love Jesse Itzler's story when he couldn't
Mhm.
afford anything. I don't know if you are familiar with him, but
Yeah, though, isn't he married to the Spanx girl or something? Or wasn't
yeah.
it? Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm very
yeah,
familiar.
but he's done very well in his own right. He started a coconut water company that sold to Coca-Cola. He started I think it was one of the jet services that, and he
Absolutely,
was
yeah.
initially doing that. He sold that company, so he's done very well for himself. And then also he married Sarah, who it owns Spanx
Phenomenal,
and is a
yeah.
billionaire herself, but she started that. Um, but what he used to do before he had any resources is he realized he could go to the Four Seasons or he could go to the Waldorf and he could go in the lobby and he could buy a cup of coffee for 4, 5, $6 and sit there and drink a cup of coffee and dressed relatively nice and not something crazy, but enough that you're
Right.
approachable. And he could rub elbows or talk to people that are in that location that are coming there to check in, that are spending 5, 6, 7,
Mhm.
$800 a night for a hotel room. Well, if they can spend 5, 6, 7, $800 a night for a hotel room, they probably have some information that would be valuable to you and just being
Absolutely.
around those people. So if you are in a situation, go to the most expensive restaurant, go to the most expensive
Right.
hotel or no motel around you, or like you just said,
Yeah.
just move. Like there's more
Right.
options than you think.
100%. And look, you can go to places and order bottled water. Like it doesn't have to be expensive. For the amount of money you would spend on a cup of coffee, you could get a bottle of sparkling water in a wine glass with some lime, and it looks like a beverage, and sit at any bar, at any famous restaurant, anywhere,
Yep.
and it'll cost you less than $10 on average. So I mean, there's and that goes like you said, it really is a solution mentality. You have to stop. It's what they say. There's a great quote that says, "When you focus on the goal, the obstacles disappear." And that's the truth. Like if too many people are out there looking for obstacles, and I think the most successful entrepreneurs are constantly looking for solutions,
Yep.
and it's just a very different mentality. But you are correct. I mean, they just did a study that shows you're far more likely to be successful. One of the number one factors, if not the number one factor, is who you know, who your friends were, rather than your education, your parents, upbringing, all of those things. They matter, they have an impact. But the number one most driving factor is who are your friends? Who are the people you chose to associate with because you rise to the level of your peer group? And if you're in a bad peer group, you have to take responsibility for that. Get up and go. You know that's
Great.
that's something you have to make sure of.
Great advice. Absolutely. Well, Claudio, I really thank you for being here today. You've given some really great nuggets. I took a bunch of notes here.
I appreciate it.
Everybody, look at the links that we have below. You can check him out. Go like his LinkedIn, Instagram, and other links that we have below as well. Also, check out his book. That link is here as well. You've mentioned some other great titles. We'll throw those in there as well. But any last final thoughts to people that are listening to this? Things that you've learned, maybe some big nuggets that you can boil down to one little statement that people can take away with them.
Yeah, look, I think people have to recognize that your life is going to be the summation of both the people that you associate with and the decisions you make, and the attitude you choose when faced with circumstances that are outside of your control. If you can master those three things, choose the right friends, choose the path that you want based on getting really, really, really honed in on what it is you desire out of life, and then doing everything you can to fix your mindset, to exercise your mind as much as you would exercise any other aspect of your life, you will start to achieve success in anything you do. And I think it's so important that people view this in any type of relationship, in any type of business environment, in any type of health component. If you say to yourself, like you should stop expecting to be good at anything. I see you have a guitar behind you. One of the reasons why I loved reading the talent code is it talks about you're going to suck at something. but then overnight your brain is going to wire those neurons and get better, and then you'll wake up the next day this much better. And it was the reason why I picked up a guitar, because I said, well, what do I care if I get good at guitar in 5 years or in 10 years? Reading this book lets you know you will get good eventually. And so once you know that whatever you guys are out there trying to do, if you commit and know that every failure is going to bring you closer to success, success is inevitable, then the fear of it taking 5 years or 10 doesn't matter anymore. If you ask anyone, you're going to be a millionaire in 10 years. If you just, and I guarantee it, all you got to do is start today. All of them would say, yes, I'll start. But it's the, I don't think I will be a millionaire, I don't know if I'll be a millionaire, that no one even starts. And that's the failure in the mindset.
You know, this guitar being here is a great example of that, because when I started playing the guitar, the goal wasn't to be great at it. It wasn't to make money off of it. It was because I enjoyed it. It was
Right.
just fun. I enjoyed it. And it was almost, let's just see how good I can get. It was a game. It was fun.
Mhm.
And that's, if you can bring that mentality to business and entrepreneurship and life in general, you can work a job and you can make good money, and you can play the game of, I wonder how good I can get with money, and how
Right.
how much understanding I can develop if you play that long game. And I think that's
Right.
the mentality you're talking about. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, Claudio,
That's
thank
awesome.
you for being here. Everybody listening to this, do us a favor, share this information out, because these are some amazing nuggets. He's quoted some great books. He's got a book himself. Click the link below. Go check Claudio out. Make sure you share this with other people. That's how we are able to help them. That's how we're able to spread this message. There's no cost to doing this for you guys. Just share. That's all we ask that you do. Our goal is to, with the Fix Your BS world, obviously I wrote a book called Fix Your Belief Systems, Fix Your BS. Our goal is to help you build your dream life on your terms. There was 2 or 3 absolutely great nuggets of information of how to build your dream life. Number 1 is really figure out what you want, because you can't get there if you don't know what it looks like. And then the second thing, which I love, is reverse engineer it. How much is actually going to cost to have that dream life? The third thing is figure out what you're going to do to get there. So then how can I monetize the things that I love in order to get to the goal that I'm after? And then just
Abs-
focus on that day in and day out. Be solution mindset, or solution oriented with a solution mindset. And voila, a few years from now, you will be successful. It just takes a
Absolutely.
little bit of time. Be willing to suck first. Thanks, Claudio.
Cool.
Appreciate you. Everybody, until next time, this is Dr. Greg Persley with Fix Your BS, Fix Your Belief Systems, where we help you build your dream life on your terms.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Bam.